What up, guys? This is ThePowerUpMushroom coming to you guys, with a video. And this is a video response to Spoony Bard's video. And his video, he challenged Namdi and I to kind of make a video on 5 franchises we would like to be seen turn into video games. And that's a pretty interesting question. And pretty much, not Namdi, Spoony Bard, he pretty much covered the franchises I would want to see, so it was kind of hard for me to think of some. But I think I got it down. I think that these could make some pretty decent. They could make some pretty decent games off of these franchises. So, without further ado, I'm going to get started with that. So, I guess one of the first franchises. It's not really a franchise, but I think it's a movie, and I think a good horror game could come out of this movie, and that is John Carpenter's The Thing. I'm pretty sure it was John Carpenter, the director, the guy who, yeah, I think he did Prince of Darkness or something. But yeah. Yeah, it was John Carpenter, The Thing. Now, if you guys haven't seen The Thing, I highly recommend you guys go and watch it. If you guys like movies like Alien, you know, or like anything from like the Ridley Scott films or anything, it's definitely a really decent horror sci-fi film where there's this alien that can take the form of like pretty much anything. It's a shape-shifting alien, but these people get isolated. I believe it's in Alaska while they're trying to they're doing like some kind of excavation site or whatever, figuring out what's going on, and this alien impersonates one of the members, and throughout the film, you know, people are dying, but they don't know who the killer is, and you as a viewer, you don't know who it is either. They did a like kind of a prequel in 2010, I believe. I think it was 2010 or 2012 or something like that. It was alright, but I like the older film was the one where like I watched it, and I think a horror game like that could really. There's a lot that they could do with it. Specifically, if you know Sega, if they got the same team who worked on like Alien Isolation, I think Sega could probably be one of the better developers or whatever. Like whoever developed Alien Isolation, I think you guys should probably do The Thing, and I think a good video game could come out of it. Like if you were, you know, as like a survivor or something, you're trying to figure out who kind of is killing people off or whatever. It could make for a really interesting horror video game, and I think that would be a great game to make. So if The Thing happens, I mean, hey, it could be a really great you know, little movie license game out there. And what's really interesting is that movie license games, they've been really bad in the past, but ever since Arkham Asylum, the Batman game, a lot of movie franchises come out kind of like they've kind of stepped up their game. So I think that there is a really good possibility we could probably see The Thing video game or something like that, but a really good one. This other franchise, I mean, it hasn't done great recently in the movie section. I mean, you've had you've had a couple of movies, you know, there's a lot of mixed reviews on them, but the Terminator series is probably one of those movie series I would really like to see turn into a franchise for video games. You have the Terminator movie license game, and it's just the Salvation one is. But anyways, yeah, if like, I don't want to say EA, but I don't see anyone else who could tackle it other than EA. I mean, if it's not EA, then Infinity Ward. Infinity Ward could probably do a decent Terminator game. And the fact that I think Infinity Ward has the first-person shooting genre down, and if you could play as soldiers, kind of against some T-1000s or something, and just against Skynet, I think that could be an overall really great concept for a video game, especially if they got that one scene from Terminator Salvation, the one scene that they had in the trailer where like you see John Connor in the battlefield, you know, played by Christian Bale, and it's just, I think there was a lot they could have done with that scene in the movie, and I think if they put that in a video game, they could better emphasize on the kind of war zone that it is, and especially how cool would it be to just be fighting against Terminators in the city or like a war zone, and like these Terminators like all running up to you, and like they can smack your soldier around or something. That'd be freaking cool. Like, you know, just exploiting the Terminator's weakness, the weakness of the Terminators, or like some different robots. They, like I said, in Terminator Salvation, there was a lot of great stuff that happened in there, but there was also a lot of stuff that I didn't like. But overall, I did like the inclusion of like some new robots that we saw or whatever. Like, it's just, I think they could do a lot with it. They could do a lot with the Terminator or Skynet in a video game and better explore the lore or just the universe. And I think it could make for some really interesting multiplayer games. If EA tackled it like DICE or something, I think you could probably get a good game there. But Infinity Ward, maybe EA, those are the people I would want to see make the game. Now, another franchise I would love to see turn into a video game is The X-Files. The X-Files is one of those TV series that I saw all the time as a kid, and like, you know, you grow up, you know, you kind of get off it, but then you get back into it. I think it would make for an interesting concept to just be put in different shoes of like some different FBI agents, instead of just like Scully or like, you know, some of the ones we already know. Maybe even get some like kind of references to old monsters that, you know, they crack cases on, or maybe some aliens, you know, some really mysterious stuff that's going on in, like, you know, in the universe or whatever, with the X-Files format. You know, like maybe you get a case, maybe take on the LA Noire style of gameplay, have Rockstar do something. There's a lot I think could be explored in the X-Files, especially maybe some maybe some plot holes you could explore with the characters, or just overall in general, like I said, explore some new monsters, or maybe some previous monsters, maybe expand more on their stories. Because that's really what the X-Files was known for, was expanding, or like not expanding, but introducing monsters, and kind of giving that little horror or suspense type feel to the show. Just knowing not what's going to happen, or what's going to, you know, eventually become of this story arc that's happening with these monsters or aliens, whatever. Like I said, it's overall, it's a really interesting concept. I think that X-Files could probably be a really good game, especially if like, maybe if Telltale's like kind of took over an X-Files game, that'd be pretty cool. But I mean, that's just me. Like, if you do something like that, I think it'd be a really great game. Another game that I think could benefit from more, like, I think video games could be Star Trek. Now, Star Trek, we've never really gotten the Star Trek video game. We've never gotten Star Trek, like an actual decent Star Trek game. Right now you have the MMO that's downloading on my PlayStation 4 right now. I'll probably get into it, but I'm talking like a Star Trek game, you know, something that's really vast, something like Star Wars Battlefront. I mean, Star Trek, it was never really about wars or anything. It was always about the story and the characters. And I really, the developers I would really want to take this on is probably BioWare. Granted, BioWare, they had a little bit of a misstep with Mass Effect Andromeda, but one thing you can't argue is that BioWare did get the combat right. They got the combat and everything right as far as game mechanics go. Now, and as far as like the format of the game, I think BioWare's format, like the Mass Effect trilogy, I think that's the way to go for a Star Trek game. Imagine like just taking on space, you know, on the Final Frontier and all that stuff, and just being able to play, maybe not as Kirk, but maybe as your own exploration team in the Star Trek universe or something, you know? Maybe better expand on the universe, the characters, maybe some previous villains. Maybe the Wrath of Khan, original Star Trek 2 Wrath of Khan, maybe exploring that, maybe Star Trek 5. If you want, maybe tie it into maybe the more previous films, maybe like, you know, Into Darkness, like what happens to Khan afterwards, Benedict Cumberbatch, by the way. What happens to him and his crew after they get shot into space or something. Like, I don't remember briefly, I don't know if they got shot into the sun, but I'm pretty sure they just got shot into space. But stuff like that, maybe explore more things, you know, around the Star Trek universe. If BioWare took on a Star Trek franchise in the style format that the original Mass Effect trilogy did, with upgraded mechanics from the Mass Effect Andromeda game, I think that can make for a really perfect Star Trek experience in, you know, the way fans would really want to experience a Star Trek game. My last game last franchise that I would really want to be seen turn into a video game is probably one of my more favorite TV shows of all time, and I think this one can benefit like a lot from a video game, and that's Lost. Now, if you guys haven't seen Lost, it's on Netflix, by the way, all 10 seasons. I think it's 10. Lost is basically about a group of people or survivors that survive a plane crash on this mysterious island, and on this island, things start happening around, like, on this island, and a lot of mysteries are just based off of what's happening on this island. Specifically, there are some people that, hey, they might have been paralyzed, and now they can walk again. There are people who have had cancer and they don't have cancer anymore. There are people who are sick, and now all of a sudden it's like the island is kind of the perfect place, like it's the perfect place. But with all these new, like, kind of like, you know, gains that these people are getting, in the fact that they don't get sick as much, or like they heal better, there's a lot of horror elements to this island, and the fact that there's something hunting down these survivors, something that these people don't know what's happening on the island, and a lot of mysteries that this island has, and the previous survivors from other crashes. What has happened to these people? That's really what the show kind of goes around, and it's a really interesting concept, because I think there's a lot that they could expand upon. And if you guys haven't seen the show, there's like this on the island. There's not really much of a spoiler, but if you guys don't want to hear anything, please stop watching the video. But on the island, there's this initiative where these people were running experiments, and they're called the Dharma Initiative. I think they could really expand more on their story. If not, I want them to expand more of what happened after the show. For people who have seen the show and finished it, you know what I'm talking about. There's a few plot holes in the show, and I think that they could better expand upon on the cast. If not, maybe get some new people in there and kind of play as these new survivors, maybe from previous crashes or something. I mean, granted, in the show they kind of expanded already on the stories of some people, but there are some people that there's this one group in particular that they didn't really expand upon what happened to them, and I want to know more about that. Like I said, people who've seen the show, you know who I'm talking about. If not, then maybe I'll have to do a review of this freaking TV show, because there's a lot to talk about in that show. But if anything, I think Telltale's, they could tackle that. I think they could really do. They could do a pretty decent Lost game, if in the fact where your choices matter, the survivors, you know, and all that stuff. I think they could do that, or they could take the Until Dawn approach and kind of do a more, like I said, story or horror aspect of the game. Because Lost, really, it was more horror in the first 3 seasons. It was really more horror than it was horror and suspense than it was anything else. Later on, it did get more into like the more action, the more characters, but it always held that little bit of horror and mystery suspense type feel to the entire show, and that's what I liked about it. And in a game, I think they could really do something with that. Specifically, I don't want to see cel shaded graphics. I would like to see new characters and stuff, but I think there's a lot they could expand upon with other characters, maybe characters we already know. But I mean, that's just me. But I do think Lost overall could be the perfect video game. Like if someone tackled it the right way, there's a lot they could really expand upon. Those are my 5 franchises I would like to see be turned into video games. There's others that I would really like to see, but right now those are like the 5 major ones. I'll leave a link in the description to the Spoony Bars video down below. He really kind of got the rest of my other top 5. So if you guys are wondering what my top 5 are, hey, go check out his video, because I think it was pretty decent. He makes some pretty good points, and I really think that if game developers, if they tackle some of these franchises, they can make some decent games if they do them right, because there's still potential to really mess up some licensed video games. But anyways, guys, if you guys like what you've seen and you guys want to see more, remember to click that subscribe button. Remember to like, follow, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff it's all right there in the description. And if you are watching on Vidme, remember to upvote that video. And remember, guys, as always, when you guys are gaming, power up.